Hello and welcome to the analysis of the Hindu newspaper dated March 24, 2023. In this video, we are going to talk about a newspaper article which we have taken from the Hindu newspaper, which is going to be very important, very significant for the civil services examination. So without any further delay, let's start with this particular newspaper article. Now, this particular newspaper article talks about a drug which is known as bedaquiline. Now, bedaquiline is a drug which has been patented by Johnson and Johnson till now, and on July 2023, its patent was going to end. And after the patent was going to end, the generic drugs are going to be manufactured in the line with the bedaquiline, right? So now, in order to stop this particular thing from happening, what Johnson and Johnson did was evergreening of this particular product called the bedaquiline. Now, if it can evergreen it, what it can do, it can use this particular patent in order to generate more of the revenues. And the wider access which was available, which would be available to the patients in the near future, would have stopped, because this particular drug will be a monopoly of the Johnson and Johnson, and that would have increased the price of the bedaquiline, or the prices of the bedaquiline would have not come down, right? So this particular thing happened with the Johnson and Johnson. Now they no longer can hold the patent after July 2023, right? So now Johnson and Johnson's primary patents on bedaquiline expires in July, and this will pave the way basically for the generic drug manufacturers such as Lupin and McLeod's, among others, to produce bedaquiline, thus ensuring cheaper and wider access to the drug. Now we have a drug called bedaquiline. Now its generic drugs can also be produced after the patent ends in July, right? Now currently bedaquiline tablets are priced at $400 per 6-month treatment course. Now this will be reduced to $100 or $50, whatever the price that Lupin and McLeod's suggest, right? So now what exactly is this bedaquiline? So bedaquiline is a crucial drug in a treatment of multi-drug resistant TB patients for whom the first line drug treatment has stopped working. After the first line drug treatment stops for any kind of patient, that particular person is going through multi-drug resistant TB, and that can be cured by only bedaquiline. So now what exactly has the law to say regarding it? So basically the section 3D of the Patents Act states that salt forms and derivatives of known substances are not patentable, right? And that is why the bedaquiline is basically a salt form or its derivative, and that is why it cannot be patented further, right? And that is why this particular patent is going to now cease into being after July. Now, what about the access to the bedaquiline right now? So, according to the latest available estimates in 2019, over 55,000 patients who had developed multi-drug resistant TB could have benefited from the access to the bedaquiline, but they could not, because of the fact that bedaquiline is very highly priced, $400 for the 6-month treatment. This is a very high price for an Indian consumer or Indian patient, right? So now, as of March 2020, only a little over 10,000 of these patients had accessed the drug, which leaves 45,000 patients out of the use of the bedaquiline, right? So what exactly is bedaquiline? So bedaquiline is used in combination with other medicines to treat tuberculosis patients when the first line of treatment fails to kill the bacteria. Basically, the second line treatment is bedaquiline. Now, the use of this oral drug has been crucial for tuberculosis treatment in the country, and it has lesser known harmful effects than injectable drugs. But the cost of the tuberculosis by bedaquiline now is expected to significantly drop, because now generic drugs will come into being, and this will lead to wider access to the Indian patients, right? Now, what exactly is this evergreening that Johnson and Johnson had filed for? Now it refers to the practice of extending the exclusivity period of a patent by making small modifications or improvements to the original invention. So basically Johnson and Johnson was going to bring about some of the modifications in the bedaquiline, and this will lead to evergreening of this particular drug, which will lead to the bedaquiline which would have led to the bedaquiline becoming the monopoly of the of the Johnson & Johnson, and they would have charged according to their own whims and wishes. Now, the goal of evergreening is to extend the period during which the original inventor can profit from their invention, and this is typically done by filing for new patents that cover variations or modifications of the original invention, even if those modifications are relatively minor. Now, the critics of the evergreening argue that it stifles the innovation by preventing other inventors from building on existing technology. And they also say that it drives up the cost of drugs and other patented products, making them less accessible to people who need them. So these are some of the criticism of the evergreening. Evergreening means modifications or small improvements in this particular drug, which will lead to new patents being filed, and these new patents being filed means that the monopoly of the company over a particular drug will increase over the period of time. Now, what exactly is this tuberculosis, this which bedaquiline seeks to cure? Now, the tuberculosis is basically caused by the bacterium called Mycobacterium tuberculosis, belonging to the Mycobacteriae family, consisting of 200 members. Now, some of the mycobacteria cause diseases like TB and leprosy in humans, and others infect a wide range of animals. Now, in humans, TB most commonly affects the lungs, that is the pulmonary TB. Now, but it can also affect other organisms, which is known as extra pulmonary TB. Now, TB is not a very new disease. It is a very ancient disease, and it has been documented to have existed in Egypt as early as 3000 BC. Now, basically, the TB is a treatable and curable disease. We just need the right kind of treatment. But how exactly do the transmission of the TB happens? Now, TB is spread from person to person through the air, which is known as extrapulmonary TB. Now, when people with lung TB cough, sneeze or spit, they propel the TB germs into the air, and that basically leads to a person getting the TB. Now, what exactly will be the symptoms of the TB when a person gets TB? How will you identify that? Now, the common symptoms of the active lung TB are cough with sputum and blood at times, chest pains, weakness, weight loss, fever, and night sweats. All of these are the symptoms of TB. Now, let's talk about the global impact of the TB on all the people. Now, in 2019, 87% of the new TB cases occurred in the 30 high TB burden countries. Now, 8 of the countries accounted for two-thirds of the new TB cases, and which belong to these 8 countries are India, Indonesia, China, Philippines, Pakistan, Nigeria, Bangladesh, and South Africa. Now, these accounted for two-thirds of the new TB cases. Now, India reported 1.8 million TB cases between January and December 2020 as compared to 2.4 million the year before. And in 2019, MDR TB remained a public health crisis and a health security threat. Now, if you would remember that bedaquiline basically cures the MDR-TB. Now, what exactly is this MDR-TB? MDR-TB is basically known as multi-drug resistant tuberculosis, and it is a strain of TB that cannot be treated with the two most powerful first-line anti-TB drugs. Now, if you move from the up position, first there is a first line treatment, and if the first line treatment doesn't work, then multi-drug resistant TB occurs, and bedaquiline is used to treat that. Now, if multi-drug resistant tuberculosis ups, or it is not or tuberculosis is not treated by the bedaquiline itself, then it is going to be known as the XDR-TB, which is known as extensively drug resistant tuberculosis. Now, this particular TB is a form of TB caused by a bacteria that are resistant to several of the most effective anti-TB drugs like the bedaquiline, right? So this is known as XDR-TB, and this is the last stage of any kind of tuberculosis. So this is the global impact of the TB. Let's now talk about what exactly are we doing in this regard, or what we are doing in order to reduce the TB. Now, first let's talk about the global efforts, then we will talk about the Indian efforts. Now, the global efforts are such that World Health Organization, which is the primary organization regarding the health, has launched a joint initiative called Find Treat All #EndTB with the Global Fund and Stop TB Partnership. And WHO also releases the Global Tuberculosis Reports, which basically ask policymakers to make necessary changes in their policies so that the policies can confront the problem of TB. Now let's talk about the India's efforts. Now basically, India has come up with what is known as National Strategic Plan for Tuberculosis Elimination from 2017 to 2025. Now we also have the Nikshay ecosystem, National TB Information System, Nikshay Poshan Yojana, that is NPY financial support. Now we also have the TB, Harega Desh Jitega campaign. Harega TB Harega Desh Jitega campaign. And currently two vaccines, that is the Vaccine Project Management 1002 and MIP, that is Mycobacterium indicus prani, have been developed and identified for TB and are under the phase 3 clinical trials. So these are some of the initiatives that we have taken in order to cure the TB. So this is it regarding this particular TB, and this is it regarding this particular newspaper article as well. So thank you from my side. Do like and share the video if you find this particular video to be interesting, and do also subscribe to this channel so that we can produce such videos in the future as well, right?